Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa, the second Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our man, Wes Davenport, who is overseas with us right now, fresh off like a day of 24 hours, straight travel, him and his wife. And I think it's just those two. If anybody else, like, God bless them for putting up with this through the whole thing, because that's a lot, going 24 straight hours with that. So we are going to break down the Summer League game. There's some coaching news. We can talk about the Pistons in general. We'll take your guys' questions. Wes said there's a little something going on with the Twitter feed right now. So we'll try to get that figured out. But if not, hopefully all of you over here on YouTube can join us. We'll talk through this.
Yeah, Omari, it's so much different, like when the intro is like right next to me, like that. I don't know why that threw me off so much. I was like, why is Bryce right in my ear doing the intro? Like, this is such a different vibe.
It is fun, but it's such a different dynamic because I'm so used to the two screens. So seeing us both right here, and then I always get awkward because I'm like, do I look at Omari? Do I look at the screen? If I'm looking here, we're just looking at each other.
Yeah.
It's not like we can see all of you guys listening out there. If you are, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on podcast version, subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff. We appreciate the support so much. So Omari, what's going on right now? How are things going?
Man, they're going. You've been in Vegas 3 days now?
Yeah.
I got in Friday, and it's been cool. Honestly, as far as summer leagues go, I feel like the hype for this one just hasn't been quite the same, just because, I mean, obviously last year you had Wemby, year before you had some guys at the top who had some hype, and then Cade the year before that. So I felt like we were watching like a lot of guys really for like the first time, especially when you have Reese, Shea, Sar, guys that played overseas. I saw a meme the other day, like in the draft, nobody knowing who any of the players were because so many of them weren't in college, and it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. You see somebody Reed Shepard, Donovan Clinton, got to organize those guys, Stephon Castle. But it's been cool, man. It's been cool. Got some good food. We just went and got some seafood, I think. But
we'll talk through the food, guys. We'll get to all of that because we shared lunch together yesterday. Omari hit a different spot last night that I want to hear about. And then the spot I went to was really good.
I think Bryce had the best meal between us here in Vegas. It sounded like.
Man, it was good for sure. So if you guys are listening live right now or later on, it sounds like Twitter's having an issue with the Twitter live right now. So we're trying to figure it out. We'll get to it, but hopefully you'll listen to this or are listening to this later on. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Omari, let's get to the actual game. So what were some of your takeaways from the game yesterday? Ron Holland, Bobby Klintman. We can go with whatever we need to. So.
Yeah, it was a sloppy game. I mean, as far as Summer League goes, you expect it to not be amazing, but certainly a sloppy one. But I would say Bobby Klintman, certainly just being a guy who came in. I think he was 3 of 7 from 3. He had, his first 2 buckets, I think, were they cut, and then he had the pull-up 3. He had like 4 assists by halftime. I thought it was a really well-rounded game from him. And again, he did play for Wake Forest 2 years ago, but I don't think he had a huge role. So he played in Australia last season. We talked about it with him after the game, but he comes in with a reputation as a shooter, and he was like their best playmaker, I thought, by a pretty wide margin, right? Like not necessarily running pick and rolls, but him just keeping his head up and being able to make those quick touch passes is something that, he could possibly build on. He mentioned playing point guard when he was younger, and that was the main standout to me, really. It's just Bobby Klintman. Like, is this guy just a summer league guy, or is he showing things that can translate and actually lead to him playing a role with the Pistons? And Bryce, I think you were pretty impressed with Bobby too, huh?
Yeah. What's up, Blake? Thanks for joining. I wanted to ask you, what was the thing you were most impressed by? So for me, I was reading through my scouting report the other day. You guys can see that on the Motor City Hoops Substack. One thing for me was that I thought he was a really good off-the-ball mover. I was not surprised with some of the cutting we saw yesterday, the off-ball relocation, some of those things. He had a beautiful off-ball relocation. I believe it was the second half because it was right in front of us, where somebody drove, may have been Wendell Moore. I call it hammered to the corner. Klintman caught, kept his feet off the sideline, which isn't easy. In person, it is. I would love to talk to an NBA coach because I saw Tristan Da Silva do it the other day when I was watching the Magic. I think they have to teach them to have their heels off the ground. Like they have to be able to be over the line without being on the line. But really good off-ball movement from Klintman. What was the most impressive thing to you? Because for me, it was the passing. I kind of had questions about his passing, and I thought he put it on display really well yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just that. Like he came in essentially with no expectations other than just shoot and play D, right? And all of those assists were like, like he's finding cutters. Like, I think he had one early in the second half where he kind of took the ball down the court, kind of faked to the right, and then fouled Aaron Estrada in the corner for a 3. Just good vision. I mean, I think anytime you have a 6'9" wing who can not only shoot but like really move the ball as well, you can plug a guy like that into pretty much any lineup and be in good shape. So it really was just a passing for me. Like it's good to see him knock down shots. Like he knocked down 2 straight early in the second, and again that pull-up 3. I didn't know how much that would be in his bag. Coming over from Australia, but if he's hitting those, again, that's a really dangerous shot. But the passing, like this team did not really have strong point guard play. Like just the ball was going flying everywhere. So Klintman just being able to make the plays he did, I thought really opened things up.
Yeah, he looked really good. Somebody said, was the real MVP. I thought he was the most impressive Pistons player yesterday. We'll get to the others. We'll talk about them. And guys, if you have any questions about anything, like this is our Vegas episode. It's a little bit different. I'll be honest, I don't get to watch the games as in tune in person as whenever I'm watching them on films. So we're going to have fun with this. So turn your questions in. You can literally ask us anything about the Pistons, about our time in Vegas, whatever. We'll answer those at the end of the episode. We'll talk to Omari later about him supposedly saying he was going to tell Steve Ballmer to get out of his way, the billionaire, and he was going to tell him, hey, I got to be able to see the game. But
it was getting to that point.
He was standing there while the game was playing. So, but no, I thought Bobby was a guy I really liked going 2 years ago, Omari. Mm-hmm. So, the more I've done the NBA draft stuff, he was on people's radar. Like if people remember, he was the guy that supposedly had a first round promise. And then he ended up not even staying in the draft. He went over to the NBL, played for Carnes, and it was a little bit up and down. He had Michael says Ballmer might be a trillionaire. I don't know. I felt pretty confident I could say billionaire and not be incorrect with that. So, but Klintman shot really well at the end of his freshman season at Wake Forest. I'm a believer in his jumper just based off like how it looks and some of the sample, and it looked good yesterday in his first game.
It did. And one thing we talk about when it comes to guys improving as shooters, because Klintman wasn't like an elite shooter necessarily. I think he shot like 36% at Wake Forest, 35 last season. But I'm curious to see if how much work he could get done with Fred Vincent as well, right? Because he's already he's already there, right? Like he's already a good shooter. So if you can turn him from good to great, again, like I think my biggest takeaway is just you look for things that you want to see, right? Like obviously from Sasser, you want to see him hit threes. Ron Holland, you want to see him rebound, run the floor, play with effort. Klintman, like I think anytime a guy shows a new skill in summer league, that doesn't happen a whole lot, right? It's more so just making sure they do the things that they can do. So I'm intrigued. Like I really am intrigued. I mean, again, he was the 37th pick. You usually don't come in with a lot of hype or expectations, but if he can build on this performance, we've seen guys send out in summer league and be able to carve out a row. He feels a need, positional need. I'm a fan of Bobby Klintman. I'm a Bobby Klintman fan so far.
Well, and I want to talk about his role in this team in general in a second. My guy Nick Crane just texted me while we're recording here. So if you guys see me on my phone, I'm flying Southwest tomorrow, and my 24-hour check-in is right now. And so if you guys know Southwest, you want to get up there in the order and be in 6-6. If I can get an exit row seat, my flight goes way better.
That's how all airlines should be. It should be first come, first serve.
So just so you guys know, like I'm trying to keep my focus here. Like this is my thing. But that 2-hour flight back to Denver, I wouldn't mind having an exit row seat. So you're gonna see me on my phone looking down, trying to get my check-in. I checked my text messages real quick, and Nick said you got to pay for Twitter Blue for StreamYard to work on Twitter now. So, and just so you guys know, so anybody who wasn't able to tune in live, you're listening after, that's not something Omari and I are going to do. Like we're not paying for Twitter Blue. So these lives may not be on Twitter anymore. It just is what it is. Yeah. I saw somebody ask about Jenkins here. We will talk about him. We'll talk about Sasser. We'll obviously talk about Holland. I want to go one more thing on Klintman before we move on, and we can come back to him or whatever. where do you see him on this roster, on this team? Not even necessarily right now, Omari, but what I like about Bobby is I think he's a natural 4. I don't think he's a big. He maybe could play wing a little bit, but he's a 4-man to me, especially as he builds out his body. And that's really, really something this team needs. I think that's what I'm most excited about with him.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, even after all the moves they made, you look at how many, I guess, quote unquote, natural power forwards on the roster, and it's still really just Tobias Harris.
Yes, agreed.
So there's a lane for Bobby to come in. And even if it's just like 10, 15 minutes, like that still could make a massive difference for this team. I think last season, just having a guy like that would have made a pretty big difference. So he comes in and yeah, like it's not like he's like a 6'6" wing or, you know, he's going to be competing with a lot of the young guys. He feels a pretty unique niche. And I think if nothing else, if he can knock down threes, then yeah, he's a very natural 4. You know, I've said it's probably my 3rd time saying it in this pod, but I really do think he's a guy that could clinch a role if he can continue to do those things. Yeah, Bryce is 6'6", so I'm rooting for him to get this exit seat right now. Like I can imagine what flying is like at that height.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it locked down. So, yes, he fits a role there. I think he's a good player. He's an intriguing prospect. I'm not positive what the minutes are this year, Omari, because while I do agree with you that Tobias is the only natural 4 on the roster, I think you still have to play Sasser at the 4 some. Tech, I think you would want to play at the 4 some just to get that spacing and those type of things.
Yeah.
I think with Bobby, it comes down, can he make shots like he did yesterday? If Bobby's shooting the ball like we saw yesterday, then yeah, like let's get him on the roster and that can help the spacing issues. Again, I think the off-ball movement, the passing, what I want to see whenever I can really lock in more is what he was defensively. Because a lot of my notes coming in the pre-draft for Klintman was how good can he be on that end of the, you know, can he be versatile? Can he make some plays? Can he be the weak side rim protector? You know, like we haven't had that since Jeremy Grant for the Detroit Pistons. And so I think they really need that.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm curious about, if he can be like that type of a weak side guy. Defensively, again, like there's still a lot we have to watch, but he does look maybe more like a wing than a forward in that sense to me. I didn't see a lot of Jeremy Grant as far as just having that athletic pop and timing on defense. So they've got some maneuverability with that rotation for sure. I mean, if you just want to go all in on shooting and, you know, you have Simone and Tobias, you know, taking up most of those minutes, you can do that. If you want to go in on defense with Sasser, you can do that. Obviously, Bobby Klintman gives you a little bit of both. So JB is going to have some options. And, you know, the competition is really probably going to be higher than it's been in the last couple of seasons, just with all the guys who are coming in new, vying for minutes. So Bobby Klintman probably the biggest winner from that first preseason game for the Pistons. So,
I would agree. And you got a chance to interview him. Like I was standing there and got to, he very well spoken. I thought he did a good job. You know, he seemed excited. He made a comment that stood out to me, which was, you know, he had been playing in a professional league. You know, at the end of the day, like, I don't understand the disappointed in the pronunciation of his name.
They're talking about Bobby and Toby, Tobias Harris.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Bobby, because I heard people calling Bobby Klintman during the pre-draft process. And then Wes sent me the pronunciation guide when it came out, and I checked all of those. No, I'm pretty sure it's Bobby.
I think it's Bobby.
I'm almost positive. So
this is kind of like when people were calling Jalen Duran. Like, I feel like it's Bobby. Like, maybe I'll double check that, but I think it's Bobby.
Wes, if you have a chance, we have that pronunciation guides link somewhere. You might put it in the private chat, or I don't know. He probably can't text me right now because he's in Europe. So, but he just hit the private chat. Yep, he's on it. So he's going to look up. So we'll get that clarified. But what I was saying is he talked about how he had been playing in a professional league over in Australia already, and just kind of I didn't think about this till now. Both of the guys the Pistons drafted aren't coming from college. Like you mentioned that earlier, just the draft in general. Both of these guys have been playing as professionals the last 12 months.
Yeah, they have. So, you know, we could talk about Ron Holland
let's talk
bit
about
as
Ron.
well, too.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was a weird game for him. Like, I felt like they were allowing the Sixers to defend him pretty physically. There was probably like 2 or 3 calls. I thought he probably should have got a call on when he was getting to the rim. So he only shot 5 for 15. I didn't think he was 5 for 15 bad, but he was active. You know, 2 blocks of steal. I thought he had a nice pass. You know, definitely tried to get downhill a lot. There wasn't a lot of transition opportunities, so we really couldn't see him, I guess, in his environment per se. but he didn't do anything that was a cause for worry. Like, I mean, I thought he found a way to make an impact regardless. He was the guy that stuffed the stat sheet when he was with the G League Ignite. And, I'd be curious to see if they just try to get the ball in his hands a little bit more next game. Like, let's see if he could make a little bit more. He was open in the corner a few times but didn't get the ball, so I don't think he really took any jumpers. There's still a lot we didn't see, but what we did see, I thought was pretty close to what you expect, right? He's going to get downhill. He's going to rebound. He's going to play with energy. He definitely did those three things.
Yeah, so we had a couple of comments on Ron from Mr. Jones. I'm going to give Ron some more time, but for the most part, he's what I expected, unfortunately. So obviously someone a little worried about him there.
Yeah.
And then I thought Holland had a better shot, but worse handled than expected. And Robert asked if we agreed. I've always said, Omari, I thought the shot mechanics looked okay. Like they looked fine to me. It's a little bit of a long wind up, maybe comes a little bit from like his chest and here, but I didn't think it looked broke, but obviously wasn't crazy consistent. I wasn't surprised by the handle not being great because I didn't think his handle was crazy tight. I think in my notes, I put, he doesn't have like ISO handle where he's just going to break you down. I think, so Wes did say confirmed pronunciation is Bobby Klintman, like we've been saying it. So Bobby, but with Ron, I don't think he's a guy you just give the ball and like let go to work and his handle's going to be real tight in that way.
More so line drive.
Yeah, straight line drives. You get him off movement, a pin down, zoom action, those type of things.
Yeah, and that's the thing because, I mean, he had a stretch, I think, in the third where he probably got stripped like on 3 straight drives. And, he was kind of looking at the refs, which a lot of those were clean strips. But he's not like a guy that you're going to set a screen for and, trust that he's going to – like he could probably get there in time. But, yeah, like Bryce said, I see him as more of like off-ball cutting, taking advantage of teams in transition. Like he's a really active cutter, like those types of things. And that game, I mean, they shot 6 of 27 for 3. Like that just was not – that was not a Ron Holland environment at all. Roster-wise, game-wise, I just didn't think that the game script went in the way that was going to help him showcase what he does best.
Well, the funny thing was, I think I sent out a tweet. It was 14-6. And then, like I said, I get to talking at Summer League games, and I had a couple people sitting by me that – one person I knew, one person I just met and whatever. And I was all of a sudden I looked up, I was like, this score was back to, it was 14-14. They didn't like, I hadn't missed anything in 3 minutes. And people do bring up a good point here. I'm going to bring up YouTube users, 76ers playing zone in Summer League is annoying. And multiple other people have commented on that. So, thank you guys that's a really good point. I noticed it as well. It is annoying to me. I've seen it in multiple games. I'm just like, why are we doing that? Like, is this really the time you need to work on your zone defense in Summer League? Let's like play. And that, listen, that's not going to be Ron Holland's strength. You know whose strength it does play to? Bobby Klintman, because he can cut off of those things. He passes the ball well, stretches the floor. And I didn't think the game got out in transition or it wasn't like a wide open, free flowing game the way I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that was by design or what. What's up, Rock Howard? But it didn't, the flow of the game wasn't what I thought. I don't know if it was because of the Sixers zone, if it was what the Pistons wanted to happen. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like combination of zone, like Pistons just not really having the playmaking that they needed, I feel like, to really be able to attack the zone the way you need to be able to. Like, again, Bobby Klintman was like the only guy who was like finding cutters and whatnot. It was just like sort of a weird, gumpy, unappetizing game, honestly. And like I love Summer League basketball. I always have. I used to get the little $20 pass to watch it in Orlando back in the day, 10 years ago. That was a rough game. That was a rough game to watch. For sure.
And listen, this will be a good transition. I don't have a whole lot else on Ron Holland right now. I think I would just like to see some more of him. We saw kind of the potential. I will say this. I thought let's go to break, and then I want to come back because I do actually have one more take, and I want to get your perspective on it. I know we're not talking a lot about defense. Again, it's when I'm not watching it on film where I can rewind and replay and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to get the vibe defensively. But I want to talk about is touch around the rim and some of his finishing. So let's go to a break here. Guys, get your questions in. Legit, ask us anything. It can be about our time in Vegas. It can be the last segment. We're probably just going to have some fun, I would guess, Omari.
Yeah, ask Bryce about his line. I feel like I really irked him by talking down
He made me mad. Like I
didn't realize he was such a line guy.
We got into it with some random people had to listen to this debate last night after supper. So we're going to go to short break. When we come back, we'll talk Ron Holland around the rim. We'll talk Marcus Sasser. I see you guys. We'll talk Jenkins, talk coaching staff, stuff like that. And then we'll have some fun at the end.
All right, we are back with segment 2. We're going to get to all the topics Bryce just mentioned. I just want to complain really quickly because we were complaining towards the end of segment 1 about the call. I forget which player it was, but he dunked like the Sixers. Like,
yeah. No, this is
and he got attacked. I hate that.
Okay,
so not only do I hate that call in general, but to do it in Vegas. Come on, like, what are we doing?
So here's my thing. I'm going to defend the officials one time. No, and I don't even want to. Like, it's an awful call in general. Yeah. Like, I think nobody thought it was a good call. I stayed around the first night, watched the Nuggets game.
It was Council. Right? It was Ricky Council. Yeah,
Ricky Council. Yeah. So at the end of the Nuggets game, there's a flagrant foul that they reviewed with 0.6 seconds in an 8-point game of Summer League, the last game of the night in Cox Pavilion. The air is out of the gym because of the unfortunate injury to Deron Holmes II. Prayers up for him for a healthy recovery. But here's why I defend the refs. These are refs and officials that are trying to make it to the NBA, that are getting evaluated on all of these calls. And my guess is that if they don't make that call by the book, they get like a demotion. Demotion's not the right, a demerit or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to get marked off. So they have to call those things that way. Cause I've seen, like, I saw a bench technical. Somebody got like a crazy dunk and their bench was out on the court a little ways, and, they stop and all of that. So I'm giving the officials a little bit of a break with some of the nuance of these things because they have to do it by the books more than even a normal NBA official would.
That's fair. There should be a sort of like a clock, right? You get a second to do whatever and get off. Because sometimes guys are going to, like, just because of the momentum of how you dunk, sometimes guys are just going to want to hang for the extra second just to make sure that they land properly. And I don't know if that's what Council was trying to do, but it was so quick. Like, if you pull up and then put your elbow in the net, like, okay, like, that's Thompson. I get that. If you dunk, quick pull up and land, that is okay. That's
here's fine. So my best friend's out from high school. His argument against this is, as Aruna says, it's a dumb rule, but it's the rule. A player holding onto the rim after a dunk, who does it hurt? It hurts his own team. It's not hurting anybody else. If he wants to dunk and he wants to just hold the rim, good. I'll go play 5-on-4 on the other end. Why are we stopping play because he wanted to do something like that?
It's it just kills the momentum of the game. You know? Like,
I hate anything that stops the game. Here's another rule while he maybe was showing off. Like, I'm just kind of like whatever on that stuff. Another rule I think they should implement in Summer League is the shoot one for 2 points and shoot one for 3 points on free throws, like they do in the G League, because I just think that would speed up the game. I have no interest in watching these dudes shoot free throws. Like, we don't need to. Somebody asked who the Pistons play today. They do not play today.
They play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow on Monday. So, like, I would love to see that rule implemented with Summer League. I think it would speed up these games a little bit.
Yeah, because that, like, the last, it was what, Knicks, Charlotte, I think. Like, the last 20 seconds of that game took like 10 minutes. And it's just like, I get it, but it's also Summer League. Like, we can get this going a little bit.
Yeah, no, and that's what, like, we can track. Like, did Ron Holland get to the rim? How much did he get fouled? Like, all of those things. Really interesting. Ron Holland. So I want to get your thoughts on this. I thought his touch when he was a little further away from the rim looked good. His first real drive, he played through some contact, soft touch off the backboard. He had one in the second half. I thought that finishing aspect was good. I thought where Ron Holland struggled was realizing I'm not just an insane athlete compared to everybody else anymore.
Yeah.
These dudes can meet me at the rim and contest shots. And he's going to have to adjust to that. I think these super athletic guys have to learn. They have to finish with finesse at times, because it's not always just going to be jump above everybody else and finish. Although I love a Dembona. That about shut Summer League down if he would have finished that one. So
100%. And that was like, he had some welcome to Summer League moments for sure, where he was just realizing over and over, like, I can't just line drive into dudes and get calls. Like, these guys have anticipation and they're going to go for the ball. So he was kind of in a constant state of like, what's going on, right? But like, I think it's good that his first bucket was that floater, because maybe his takeaway is, I can lean on my in-between game a little bit more, right? Like, you're going to have those pockets of space, and if you can knock that down with any consistency, I mean, especially at the 6'8" wing, like that's not a shot that a lot of wings have in their bag. So if you can go to that consistently, then that essentially solves the issue Especially and we're going to talk about his shooting, but if he can even knock down like 1 out of every third 3,
yep.
And now you're getting open, like more open lanes to the rim because you're attacking closeouts. Like he's going to be fine, but absolutely that in between aspect of his game, I think, was really encouraging to see. And I don't know how many more games he's going to play, but I'd be curious to see if he goes to that a little bit more, depending on how teams are playing him.
Well, I'd rather it be that way. I'd rather him be having to kind of figure out how do I finish around these guys at the rim because I'm used to being able to just dunk on them or whatever and have the mid-range game, that soft touch, because that's something you can really work off of. Mm-hmm. So I really, really like that with him. The shot will be interesting to see how it comes along, if he's able to develop, if he's able to get there with that. But I'm hoping he'll play a few more games just to kind of see, and then with Klintman, kind of see if he can build off what he showed. If we continue to see the passing, and then I really want to watch them defensively a little bit more as we go throughout all of this. Let's talk about Sasser, and I guess we can talk about Jenkins as well. The other thing I want to say, like, this roster is not great. Wendell Moore, I saw some people kind of excited about him. I was kind of like, whatever.
He got a couple of shots in the second half to go. Yeah, he got a couple shots.
He was fine.
Yeah.
The big man position isn't something that's like super impressive. The depth off the bench isn't crazy. Tosan was there, but he was in street clothes. Obviously, he didn't play. So what were your thoughts? I want to start with Marcus Sasser because I've loved Marcus Sasser. We were fans of that pick when it happened. I don't think he was very good yesterday, straight up. And so what did you kind of think about his play? And this is even a chance maybe to talk about Sasser kind of big picture on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to see a second-year guy come in and dominate. I think that's bottom line. Anytime you have a second-year player at Summer League, you're going to see him come out and, do what Reed Shepherd did.
Yeah.
Essentially. And that's not always going to happen. I remember Ivy struggled in Summer League last summer, and everybody was like, what's going on, right? And sometimes, guys just don't play well for whatever reason. Like, I'm not really concerned about Sasser going 0 of 6 from 3. Like, we know that he can knock down shots.
Yeah.
And he turned last Summer League cold too, and then he went out for 40. So it could just be summer, like working yourself back into a rhythm or a groove. But that first time out in the first quarter, he checked out. He was gassed. So I also just wonder how much of that was just him like not quite being in like game shape. So it was a few things going on. Again, it's one Summer League game. There's nothing to really have any reason or cause for concern. But I would say, if nothing else, just given that the team did need some point guard play, that's where he really could have made more of an impact, is just being the playmaker. And he did have 4 assists. Not like he didn't assume that role, but he's definitely more of a shot first guard, I think, at this point still.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. My one tweet about him was, I just want to see more catch and shoot threes. There's a little bit of, it's different, but there's a little bit of the Sadiq Bey where I just got so frustrated watching Sadiq turn down a catch and shoot 3 to do a shot fake, 1 dribble to the side 3, and usually miss. And so I thought there was a couple of times where Sasser turned those down. Now, if the idea for Sasser is, hey, go be a point guard, go be a playmaker, then I understand that if that's what the coaching staff is telling him. But then I would have liked to see that more from him. I don't think we saw him breaking down the defense and then spraying it to shooters or throwing a lob to a big or getting Ron on the move and getting downhill. So I wanted to use this to go into, again, kind of the big picture with Sasser on this roster. To me, I think he's an off-ball guard. He's a floor spacer off of a guy like Cade Cunningham. Even I think you could survive with him and J.I. in the backcourt in a second unit. So what do you think ultimately his role ends up being in Detroit? Do you think they try to move him into a playmaking point guard, or he slots more off the ball floor spacing into that role?
At this point, he probably, I would say just because there's positional need, like I could at least see JB attempting to use Sasser as a backup point guard, just like Bonnie last season. He looks like a point guard, right? Like you're going to give him an opportunity to do that. But just based on this style of play, like I do see him as more of an off guard. I see him as more of maybe like a Lou Williams type. He could come in and just get you some points, and he could keep the ball moving, but he's not necessarily the guy that you're going to be running pick and roll after pick and roll with. And also with him, a lot of his game does come down to how hot he gets as a shooter. And of course, when he's hot, he can completely take over a game. But that's his quickest path to minutes, really is just backup point guard, right? If you can, maintain the playmaking responsibilities for 30, not 30, like 18, 16 minutes or however long you have to do it. To me, that's a really clear path to the court for him, because they do have shooting in the backcourt, and you can still find minutes for Sasser just based on the shooting. But the need is for him to be a point guard. So that's where the opportunity is going to be for him.
Yeah, so Josh Kettlewell, I was just checking Twitter here because somebody asked about a move that was just made.
Yeah.
Said, give your thoughts on a need for a real backup point guard. I think Ivy could play some minutes there, but Sasser's not a point guard. So exactly what we're talking about here. Here was the question I thought of this morning as I was just thinking about us recording, thinking about Sasser. So when I say rotation, I'm saying I know people don't stay healthy for 82 games. They don't play their normal minutes, rest, all of that stuff. But let's say opening night rotation. Where are you at with Sasser? Do you think he's in the opening night rotation if everybody's healthy, able to play their allotted minutes that the coaching staff would want? Because for me, I don't know that he is, Omari. I mean, between Cade playing 30, you want to stagger. I mean, oh man, I almost said Monty. That would have been really bad. JB said he wants to stagger Cade and JI. So you get JI, you could give him all of those backup point guard minutes. You have the two guards on the roster with the floor spacing. Do you think right now he's in play to be in the quote unquote rotation, whether that's a 9 or 10-man rotation?
And that's the thing, because in that rotation, he's essentially the fifth guard. So, I would think Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cade, Ivy are all probably higher in the pecking order on some level, unless, like Ivy still struggles with his shot or something. And sometimes JB just wants to go with more shooting or whatnot. And I saw prognosticating, like, we don't know how that's going to play out, but on paper he seems like he's more so the fifth guard right now. Tim Hardaway is going to play, Malik Beasley's going to play, Cade, Ivy obviously are two of your building blocks. So that's four guys. What you have, Isaiah, Duren, like let's say you go two centers, so some combination of Duren and Isaiah and Paul Reed. So that's 6, and then you have Simone, and then you have Tobias. And, maybe there is room for Sasser at like number 9, but you still have Sasser, right? Like Ron Holland. So there's probably 9-10 guys who rotationally you can pretty much slot in pretty easily before you get to Sasser.
Well, that's what I said. They have, I believe I've been counting, they have 12 guys who I feel like think they're going to play, right? Like I'm not counting Wendell Moore as a guy who, I mean, he may think he's going to play, but I'm not counting him as a guy that the Pistons are going to quote unquote prioritize, right? And right now I'm leaving Bobby Klintman out just because he was a 2nd-round pick. That doesn't mean they won't. And that doesn't mean he's not a priority, but maybe he's a priority with the Crews. So yes, people, like Michael says, people are always hurt. So I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm trying to contextualize where Sasser might be in the pecking order right now, because you still have 12 other guys, because you brought up 2 centers, but really there's 3 dudes that think they're going to play. I think between obviously Duren, obviously Stewart, and I would assume that Paul Reed wants to play minutes at his age and his situation. And listen, Duren's not playing the 4. We've talked at length about Isaiah Stewart playing the 4, and I don't think Paul Reed's a ton of 4. And even if they were, then you're taking minutes of the 4 away from Tobias and Sasser and a stretch guy in Fontecchio. So, like, you have all of those guys, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Tech, all of that. To me, I could see Sasser being the guy out whenever everybody's healthy and able to play their allotted minutes. And then I don't know who the other one is. Like, I don't think they can play 11 guys, a night. I think it could be 9. I just don't know how they get there, so it'll be interesting. Here's the other thing, Omari, that I always like to bring up. Trajan didn't draft Marcus Sasser. So I have to reconfigure my thinking is when people are like, oh, you think the Pistons would trade Sasser? Well, Troy Weaver traded back into the 1st round to draft Marcus Sasser. Well, Trajan Langdon didn't. He wasn't the guy that did that. We have no idea. Maybe Trajan doesn't like, smaller guards. Yeah, hopefully Marcus does score 4. Listen, we've had Marcus Sasser on the pod. Like, he's the one player we've got. We love him. Just trying to, talk about what we saw yesterday and where he might be right now. So let's talk Jenkins. I thought impressed. If Bobby Klintman was the – Sasser will end up on the Wizards. If Bobby Klintman was the winner, I think Jenkins was the next guy. Like, I thought Jenkins really looked good. He's on a 2-way, like legit 2-way already. So obviously he impressed the team and they put a little bit of stake into him. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I think he had 8 points. Like, I thought he had some good defensive plays. Like, again, like that's a guy that comes in a situation you just signed a 2-way deal. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I thought he came in. I thought he played with really great effort. Like, again, I thought he had some good plays on defense. And, I'd be curious to see if he's a guy that could carve out a bigger role as well, especially, as maybe some of the the older guys, begin to sit as we go on. But he's an interesting guy. Like, you look at his college numbers, and he was pretty much good at everything except shooting the ball. So that's another, player who, if Fred Vincent can unlock that shooting potential in him, then he's a guy that could. Again, it's one summer league game. I don't want to, assume too much, but the only issue with him was the shot. So there's the same theme of, bringing guys in who, if they can shoot, then potentially that could pop down the road.
Yeah. So the one last thing we'll talk about here, and then guys, get in your questions. Again, we got about 5 minutes here. We're going to go to the third segment. We're going to talk food. We're going to talk Vegas. We're going to have some fun here and answer your questions. So get those in. And we'll talk Pistons too. You guys have Pistons questions. We'll answer those as well. But we're going to have some fun here at the end. The Pistons made an announcement. They hired Luke Walton as an assistant coach. We saw Luke in the stands last night. I believe it was Luke and JB and Trajan were all kind of sitting together. Yeah. Like, listen, other guys were there as well. Obviously, Jarrett was coaching, all of that.
Yeah, Mark Bryant.
Yeah. So that's what I found interesting, Omari, was I was talking to somebody about, keeping assistant coaches. And, they were like, who coached the Pistons Summer League team last year? I said, Jarrett Jack did.
Yeah.
I said, that's really interesting that he went from Monty to stayed on with JB. And then Mark Bryant, who I think has done some really good things with the bigs, he stayed on the staff as well. So the couple holdovers, but also some, Burlinson comes over with JB, I believe, right? And I think Luke was with JB as well in Cleveland. So guys, rounding out the coaching staff there with Fred Vincent also.
Yeah. I think Burleson was with Rio Valley. In the G League.
Yeah, that is right.
He was their head coach. Yes. But he was in Memphis with JB as a player development coach. So that's where the connection comes from with JB and Burleson. Yeah, it's been interesting to see how the front office and coaching staffs have come together just in the weeks since Trajan was hired, because you have George David, he was the assistant GM last 2 years under Troy, and now he's back with Trajan, so he stayed on, like Dwayne Casey is still around.
I saw Dwayne Casey was sitting in the stands last night. Yeah. He was talking to, I think it was Jerome Allen. They were sitting up there talking and stuff. And then, obviously Sidney Lowe as well. So I feel like they have too many assistant coaches. I feel like we've named too many guys to be on staff, but I'm sure there'll be a role for all of them.
Yeah, Jarrett and Mark Bryant, obviously, and those guys have continuity, from last season. Like Duran and Isaiah worked a lot with Mark Bryant, on big man stuff, obviously. Jarrett with the guards. So, you do have some continuity from last season behind the scenes, which I think is interesting, because whenever you have any sort of regime, you just don't know how things are going to go down, right? Like, a lot of teams will just do a complete full sweep, and and Trajan probably stopped at like 75, 80%. So you still have a little bit there left over. But yeah, I'd be curious, just seeing how the staff looks, right? Like, you have a guy in Luke Walton who's obviously been a head coach, former player. He was with JB the last 2 years in Cleveland, so there's familiarity there, but that's a really high profile assistant coach to be your lead assistant. So it's a pretty, promising staff. I'm curious to see how it looks.
I don't follow the coaching stuff a lot, but there's some names that general NBA fans are going to know between Jarrett Jack and Luke Walton, and Fred Vincent's a big name with the shooting and all of that. So before we move on here, any other guys from Summer League that have kind of caught your attention just as you've watched games? You mentioned Reed Shepherd earlier. He was really, really good in his game. Yeah. I think Steph Castle has looked awesome. I was talking to somebody in the stands last night. My guy, Jamon Alexander, got to meet him in person and take a picture with him. But I told him, I said, listen, I carry my own receipts. I said I wasn't sure Steph Castle was a point guard. He sure as heck looks like a point guard right now. It is Summer League. It's Summer League, but he looks really good, in control of the ball, operating ball screen, stuff like that. Anybody else catch your mind? Bigger name, smaller name, anything like that?
Yeah, we can start with Reed. I mean, everybody who's, listen to the pod knows that Reed and Klingen were like my two guys in the draft, but that's the first time I'd actually seen Reed in person. And he's like one of the best shooters in the draft. Like, there was no surprise there, but it's always different seeing a guy shooting in real life compared to on the screen. I don't know why you just get a sense of how their body moves a little bit better in person. And he's just such an effortless shooter from any range. I'm just like, this dude might be a 40% shooter as a rookie. So I still think Reed Shepherd's going to end up being one of the best players from this class. I'm a big fan. I thought Klingen had a really good game. I think he had 5 blocks, and he's so fundamentally sound. He's just a great modern fundamental big. He does everything except shoot, but he's a guy I'm really high on. You mentioned Stephon Castle. I thought he looked really good. Bub Carrington's a guy that his profile really rose in the last 2 months leading up to the draft, just because of how young he is and the potential. And I think his game's really suited for the NBA with that pull-up jumper, and he's got really good size for a guard. It's been some good guys. Like I like watching Cam Whitmore. I think his game just really pops in summer league. Alex Sarr was great.
That's gonna say like Bub stole the show and rightfully so,
Yeah.
but I don't think Sarr and Reza Shea were bad. You know, and I saw about half of that game because I did go over and start watching the Nuggets game. Yeah, Khalil Ware, YouTube user brings him up. Khalil Ware has played really well. Like everybody knew Khalil had the chance to be really good. There were some other questions around that. And like right now he's doing it. Like he's showing the things he needed to show, which is really good for him. Like awesome for him. Also, my guy Keyshawn Johnson had a really monster dunk. But yeah, like the Magic guys look good to me. I watched that game. That was the first game I caught. Jet shot the lights out. Anthony Black.
I'm an Anthony Black guy. He was
awesome. He was really, really good. And I thought Tristan Da Silva played really well also. So yeah, some really good. I was going back. Alex Sarr, the parts I saw really protected the rim well, flashed that stuff.
He gets off the floor quick too.
Yeah, and good length. He had the sidestep three, which again, it's just flashes right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the last year's draft guys like Jaime Hackett, like Keontae George isn't even playing anymore because he got to the line like 20 times a game in the salt. That's one thing. Those guys know how to get to the lane. Scottie Pippen Jr. in the Grizzlies game was just like cooking because he knew how to draw fouls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did not watch the Bulls games, guys. So one thing I've learned about podcasting is don't talk about stuff that I can't talk confidently about. And
I heard Modest look pretty good though.
I looked at the box score, but like again, like I don't want to say anything and then sound like an idiot. So I need to watch Modest. So
yeah, like that game I think was like right after the Pistons, so we were like
okay, so that was in the other gym.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
listen,
so.
like
we just went around for that one.
We went back and interviewed the players, and that took a little while and all of that. The last guy, I thought Reza Shea was showing some things I wasn't expecting him to show.
Yeah.
Also, there's some dudes playing in summer league I didn't expect. Like Brandon Miller was playing, Pajemski was playing, Davis was playing. Yeah. So I assume those guys are like one game. Cody Williams
bought out. Yeah.
So again, I haven't seen the game, but I saw that he played really well in the game I believe that was last night. So the game I did watch, I didn't think he played very well. But again, that's like it's one game sample, and then I didn't see this game that he played last night. So who else on the Nuggets summer league squad pop for you? Like DeRon Holmes was playing really well. He was 3 of 3 from 3 before he went down, started rebounding the ball in the second half. I thought he was going to be really good. He'll be back. Julian Strawther was probably the guy. Julian Strawther needs to be really good for the Nuggets with the loss of KCP, and they haven't added much depth in the backcourt. So
I think they've had the worst offseason.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument in terms of they haven't replaced him. No. They haven't replaced anybody. They haven't done. I mean, they lose KCP.
Yeah, they've done nothing.
And the thing is, and especially now with the Holmes injury, they brought in Dario Saric. That's all they've really done so far. Yeah. To me, it's not even just about Christian Brown replacing KCP in the starting lineup. Like, I think that's a big ask, but let's even say he does it. It's about now then replacing Christian Brown in the second unit. Like their depth just continues to take hits over and over and over. So let's go to break. When we come back, we have 5 questions right now. Again, guys, get your questions in, or you're going to have to listen to us talk about lawns, eating, and
that might be what they want.
And maybe that is what they want. So we'll get into that whenever we get back from this short break.
All right, we are back with segment 3. First, Bryce, did you successfully get an exit seat?
So, I don't get to choose an exit seat on my flight. So what I was able to successfully do the other day, I was B50, and I got an exit row. Today I'm B22. So I got a chance. I got a fighting chance here. For some reason, people don't take the exit rows. I don't. What
I like
was
the exit row too?
Yeah, I mean it's so much more. So I think what people avoided on my flight to Vegas was the middle seat exits were available. So people for some reason would rather take an aisle compared to an exit row middle. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'll take the exit row middle. It was so much more of a comfortable flight than otherwise. So I got a fighting chance here to get an exit row. So we'll see. It's a short flight. So if not, I'll be out. The biggest thing I truly need, Omari, my left leg is the one I tore up in college. If I have that where I can't stretch it out every once in a while, I I really, really struggle. So
that's understandable.
Thomas from Germany. I'm sorry. Dirk City. So that's what we'll call it. Long time Pistons freak since Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. Okay, I see you. Check in on you guys every week from over here. You two are the best. Go Pistons.
Appreciate
Thank you
Thomas.
so much, man. That's
that.
Awesome.
What time zone are you in? What time is it there?
The same as Wes. Whatever time Wes is on right now, that's what Thomas is on. Yes, Thomas, let us know what time it is. I will also say this. I was just walking through the hotel yesterday. If you guys are on Twitter, you saw the picture. These people are standing outside, this couple, awesome couple, waiting to go in and eat. All of a sudden, I see the wife kind of look at me and point, and I'm like, they're wearing Pistons gear. Yeah. They're like big fans, all of that. So we snap a picture, put it on Twitter. So if you're at the arena today, make sure you say what's up. But that's the coolest part for me about Summer League, Omari, is all of the fans out there. So Wes says plus 5 hours from Eastern time. We're -3 of that. So you got
8.
He's 8 hours ahead of us.
So like 8 p.m.
It's like 8 p.m. Yeah. So yeah, it's always cool to see the fans come out. And I was fortunate enough, like I've even had some other fans from other teams and stuff like that because of game theory now, like catch me in the arena. So
speaking of, it sounds like you had a pretty nice dinner last night.
I did have a nice dinner last night. So we ate at the Alejo, I think that's how you say it. If not, I'm sorry, in the Cosmopolitan. Okay. And it was really, really good. It was awesome. It was really expensive. Hopefully my wife doesn't look at the credit card because I might be in trouble. But it was good. Like you come to Vegas, you splurge a little bit. It was an awesome meal. How was your guys's? Like I saw the picture of James on Twitter with the sombrero and all of that. So you guys obviously went straight Mexican food.
Yeah. We went to a Mexican spot. It was called Casa de. There's like 3 of them. It's like a family-owned like small chain here. So we just went. It was in like old Vegas, like not too far from Fremont. Like a pretty solid group, like me, James Edwards, like Rod, Beard, obviously used to work for the Detroit News, a couple other people. And man, like it was good. Like I just got a burrito, like nothing super crazy. But the highlight of Vegas is always when we go to Lotus of Siam, which
I missed it.
Which like it was right during the Denver game, which Bryce was at. So we couldn't get Bryce out there this time, but we got the garlic prawns and like curries and everything.
I saw Rod yesterday at the game, and he goes, the prawns were awesome. I was like, I'm sure they were, Rod, because that Rod loves the prawns.
They are magical. It's like literally like this is another like expensive Vegas spot, right? Like it's like $35 for like a plate of them, and they're big, but you probably get like 8-9 prawns. But it's like top 5 foods. Like it's so good.
Okay, who's the funniest Detroit Pistons beat writer?
Probably me. Like I'm being real, it's probably me. Yeah, we can poll. We can poll and see.
I mean, in fairness, there's only a few of them right now because Mike got to go to Dallas and cover an NBA Finals halfway through last season.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised he was out here because of Summer League. But I'm like, man, like I don't think any beat writer had a busier 2024 than he did.
He had to cover the Pistons up until March, and then he got to go cover an NBA Finals run.
Yeah.
I will say this, guys. I feel pretty special. I get to hang out with these guys. Obviously, they're on the road together all the time and all that. They do get along really. Like it's cool to see like the interactions between O and James. Whenever I first started doing this, it was Rod at the News. Lauren was doing M Live.
She's with the Hawks now.
And all of that, and other people who I haven't mentioned, but there is a kind of cool little chemistry between all of them, and they do have a lot of fun.
Yeah, so. I mean, we spend so much time together. Like they're like 6 months out of the year. I see James more than like my parents, like my family. Like it's just like you see these people every single day, so you do build relationships out of that.
Yeah, and that's what I will say. So the food, I had scallops for the first time at that restaurant last night. They were amazing. They were awesome. They seemed silly, but the mashed potatoes.
How were they cooked? How were the scallops cooked? I'm curious.
Seared. How do you cook scallops?
I haven't really had scallops.
I didn't go to the kitchen. They just brought the plate and set it down, and I ate it.
They'll probably seared.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably seared.
Okay, good question here. What did you guys do in Vegas besides being at the Summer League games? Eat and go to the games. That's legit all I do. Yeah. I haven't gambled a single dollar. I don't know if you have this time.
I'm not a gambler. Yeah. I'm not a big gambler. I just to me that's like legal scamming basically. Like the odds are literally rigged against you. Like what is the point? I don't get it.
Yeah, I spend enough money on food and Ubers. I don't need to lose money. Yeah. I will say I'm out here again with my best friend from high school. He came with this year. My wife comes every other year, so this was her off year. and he's been like
Yeah.
playing in pokers and he does sports betting and stuff like that. And when my wife comes with me, she actually brings a friend and they go do Vegas-y stuff. I think the most Vegas stuff I've done is I went to the Chris Angel Mind Freak like 2 years ago. So let's get to some of these questions. Again, if you guys have any others, we'll rapid fire through here. We got about 10 minutes left. Michael says fans won't want the rookies in the G League, but that's likely given the roster, both of them. I think for sure Bobby Klintman. I don't see Ron starting in the G League. Like my thing is I learned my lesson with Jalen Duren, and Jalen Duren was taken after Ron Holland. And I think Jalen Duren was just as raw. Now, the thing with Jalen had very specific things that he could provide on an NBA floor.
For sure.
So that's a little bit different there. Now, if you told me we get halfway through the season and other guys are playing well and the minutes have been cut and they need to get in playing time, maybe. But I will never predict again a lottery pick starting out the season in the G League.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see that. Like, top 5 pick playing in the G League, I think would be irregular. But James Wiseman played in the G League when he was in Golden State just because they didn't have minutes for him. So it does happen, and it's not necessarily an indictment on the player, but just more so the situation. Obviously the Pistons aren't contending like Golden State was, so you may not have the same incentive for that. But the other thing too that I'm curious to see is just that the previous regime did not utilize the G League for their first round picks, really. That's just not something that they did. And other teams have been willing to do that. Like the Hawks, Jalen Johnson. I mean, I think he was like the 17th pick. Like he spent time in their, G League team. Like a lot of first round picks have and have benefited from it. So I'm curious to see just exactly how this new regime utilizes the Motor City Cruise, because like so far, like I think they utilized it as far as just the two-way guys and whatnot. And obviously during COVID when, they just needed bodies on the floor. But beyond that, I would argue that there's probably even more that they can get out of that investment.
YouTube user brings up a good one. Jarris Walker played a ton in the G League. So good call there. That's fair.
Yeah. Well, he was like the 8th pick.
And, they had guys above him that were playing in, once they got Siakam and then Obi Toppin. So
Thompson spent time in the G League.
Yeah.
And he was the 4th pick.
Yeah. And Taylor Hendricks. So, those are all good calls.
Yeah.
Once it happens with the Pistons, I will start predicting it again. But until that, and it is a new regime, we'll see. Like maybe that's what it is. I think what it comes down to maybe is the type of, progression, what you're looking for. I talked about Ron Holland finishing at the rim. Is he going to learn that with the other thing is the Pacers were trying to win games this last year, and I know Detroit wants to win games. Don't freak out on me, guys. I know they want to win games, but it's a little different level than what Detroit was. But to the Taylor Hendricks point, Utah wasn't. So, is it possible that Bobby is a rookie who gets NBA minutes as Ron, a guy who needs G League from YouTube? I don't think so. Like I like Bobby. I don't know that Bobby gets any more minutes than Ron. Like I think I would be more inclined that neither of them are getting a ton of minutes than Bobby's getting them over Ron, I think is where I'm at right now. So
yeah, I'll be curious to see. I don't just with Ron being like a top 5 pick, like they made a way more significant investment in him. But again, like it's tough to say. Kobe Buff can play with the G League team. Like a lot of lottery guys are playing in the G League now.
Sure.
Like that's becoming more and more common, and teams are doing it like for that reason, because it's meant to develop guys to run the same schemes, same play calls and whatnot. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if either of those guys played in the G League.
Yeah, I learned my lesson with the predictions in July. Will K, how bad is the Vegas Heat? Heard it's been 110 plus. It's definitely been 110 plus.
Yeah, it was like 115. Like I got in Friday, it was like 115.
Yeah, I will say this: the toughest part has been the gyms aren't as cool as they've been in the past. Like legit, people in past years would wear like long sleeve shirts to the gym because the gyms were so cool.
Pants,
and I don't know if they're just not working as well, or because it's 115 instead of 105, they can't keep up. Yeah. And there's so many people still, even without it. Next year's going to be insane with Cooper and Ace Bailey and all of these guys. Yeah. But it's hot, man. It is hot. And it is a dry heat, as people say. And there is something to that.
It just feels like standing in an oven, because especially like the thing about Vegas, and I don't mind warm weather. Like I really don't. Like even 115 was like, like I'm taking it over below freezing for sure. But the thing with Vegas is that there's no breeze. There's no such thing as a breeze. It's hot air. So you go outside, and if it's windy, there's hot air smacking you in the face when it's already hot. That's the only thing I don't like.
Yeah. So question from our guy in Brazil. What time is it over there, Omari? Did you guys see the Asar picture with Cade and Tim Hardaway Jr.? Asar looked – I don't think he looked – Asar looked bigger. Like I thought when he walked – he didn't walk right by me, but when he walked back into the tunnel, like you could see his arms, I thought he looked stronger. So I think as people grow up, their faces fill out. If you put on like I'm not worried about him like not being in shape.
Compare Cade to like 3 years ago, and he's changed a lot more than you would think.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I did see those guys. They were all sitting over there together. It was funny. The game like stalled out because these kids were chanting Cade, 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 and Cade actually sent somebody to go get the jersey and signed it for the kid and stuff like that. So Steven Suggs, I'm a Pistons fan living in New York. Can I get quick thoughts on you from what the Knicks are doing this offseason? Listen, I thought they overpaid for Mikal Bridges, but I think Mikal Bridges is an awesome fit with the Knicks. Like if you want to beat the Celtics, you got to be able to defend wings because they have, one of the best, if not the best combination of two-way wings in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Jalen Brunson is a star, just gave you a discount, to continue to build things out, at least for a little while. Love DiVincenzo. Here's my one worry with the Knicks. You were getting 48 minutes of really good center play whenever both of those guys were healthy.
Yeah, that's
and you just lost one of those guys.
Yeah.
And the one that's still there when you weren't getting 48 minutes of good center play, it's because that one was hurt. And so I have some concerns, Omari, about them at the center position.
Yeah, I feel like their season may hinge on Mitchell Robinson, despite going and getting like Mikal Bridges and all that. And they know they have to get through Boston. Like you got to deal with Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they may be the best equipped team to do that in the league now, except OG and Mikal Bridges. Like that's clearly, what their long-term plan is to be able to hang with them. And the Celtics outside of Porzingis may not be that big of a team soon anyway, just with Horford and whatnot. But yeah, their season may hinge on Mitchell Robinson just because you still need rim protection, right? And they may go and get Precious Achiuwa just to have some backup depth there. Like I don't know, but that's my concern for them is that center position. Like because Isaiah Hartenstein is a huge loss, and you've done nothing to really address that gap. So maybe it helps just getting Randall back. Maybe you could play him as a small five here and there. Like I don't know. But
my understanding is like that's not really Tibbs' history though. Is playing the small fives. You know,
and I don't see him as a five. Either. I think he's a pure four. So.
The thing with Boston is will be interesting how good they are in the regular season because they have 3 dudes playing in the Olympics. So they just go to the NBA Finals. That's a long season. Yeah. Now 3 of their starters are going to go play in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Who knows how many minutes? And Porzingis isn't going to be ready until after probably the calendar year because of the surgery he had. So that the East is going to be interesting. Obviously, you have the Sixers there as well. We'll do a breakdown on the offseason once things completely settle down. Tyler says, you guys think Holland will be splitting minutes with Sar. Do you think they'll try to run both with Cade, Beasley, Stu in the backup group? I don't know about that specifically. I would love to see those guys play together because we just talked about, a two-way wing duo in Brown and Tatum. I'm not saying these guys are those guys at all by any means. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea of these 2 wings that can really defend in Asar and Holland, I want to see some of those lineups. Now, you have to put real good floor spacers around those 2. But I do hope we get some of the minutes. Obviously, probably as second unit. I don't see them starting both of those guys, obviously.
Like Trajan and JB have both talked about Asar being a high-end defender and Holland having the chance to get there. So I wouldn't be shocked to see those guys play together in certain matchups. Like, for example, Boston, if you just need some sort of defensive spark potentially. I can see them playing together. Like, truly, I do not know how the rotation is going to shake out. Like, I don't want to try to predict too hard because I really don't know. Like there's it's a new regime, new coach, new players. Like, we have to wait and see for a lot of this stuff. But they've talked highly about both of them. So I think they'll have some sort of role in some capacity.
All right, last call for questions. We'll get through them real quick here. From Mimp, who do you think is the most likely young guy to break out this season? I'll say Jaden Ivey.
I'll say Duren because I think Duren, like, if he's the same player on offense for the most part, maybe cut the turnovers down a little bit. Like that's a really solid offensive center. And for him, it's just getting better defensively. So I think, Duren may have a more straightforward path than Ivy to really have that type of breakout season.
Michael says, do you think Ivy plays as their backup point guard, but maybe comes alongside Cade, though? Closes. Yeah. I do. That's JB saying he anticipates staggering those guys was one of my biggest takeaways from what he said so far, and I hope it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I think Ivy has to show that he can do it too, right?
Sure.
Like I think his playmaking has been really kind of up and down in the past, so he has to do his end. But like I do think, like I actually asked JB the question, like, what did you learn from coaching? So the question specifically was, what did you learn from coaching Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland that you can take with you to Detroit? And that was among the things he said, is that, you know, you have to have one of those guys on the floor at all times, right? You have to play them to their strengths, and they can play together, start close games together, but you stagger them and always have one on the floor. So, you know, I think he'll try to do that with Ivy, but Ivy also has to show that he can be the lead guard, right? Because if that doesn't happen, then you still probably need a point guard on the team.
Brady brings up a good teams utilize the G League to help player development. Weaver's inability to put a balanced team on the floor, it's done at the growth. I do think that's interesting, right? Like maybe the rosters weren't good enough. Maybe there wasn't enough of the vet talent like we think this team does, right? Yeah. Like the additions of Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. maybe potentially allow Omari, these guys, to play in the G League whenever, you know, when maybe Jalen Duren should have, you know, for a little bit, but the roster just didn't have the dudes on it to allow that to happen. And I'm not saying he should. I'm just saying, like, maybe you can make those arguments. So P. Max says, you expect that Lang would sign a backup point guard since Sasser is still showing some inconsistency with that position.
They still have cap space and they still have a roster spot.
So that's they're down to one roster spot with the Klintman.
So yeah,
I think that's so. Right.
Yeah.
My thing with this is, if you bring him in, is it a guy that's going to be upset with minutes? Like I think Tyus Jones would be awesome. If you bring in Tyus Jones, there's no minutes for J.I. to play backup point guard. So we've talked about this. We've had questions about it, all of that. If that's what you do, I'm okay. But then we're probably not going to see a lot of J.I. at backup point. This is a great comment from Stephen P. Healthy vets are important. I don't know if I said this on the pod. One of the things that I noticed with all of the signings or in Tim Hardaway Jr. trade, those guys played a lot of minutes a lot of games over the last 5 years. Beasley, Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. Obviously, the floor spacing, those were kind of the common themes with those guys. Tons of games played. Seemed like health was good. And so that was interesting. We got two more. Do you think Trajan's ultimate projection is Cade, Ron, and Asar, like as a trio there?
Again, I think it's tough to project. Like, I don't think he knows the answer to that. Like, it just depends on how those guys develop, right? If Asar never develops a jumper, then I think that limits his ability to be a full-time starter. So, like, again, I think it really just comes down to how certain guys develop. But those are answers we don't know, you know? Like, I'm sure he would love for all three of those guys to be stars, but you know, again, like, you know, the players have to do the work and they have to develop them to that point. So, you know, it's tough to say, but if you can do that, then that's great.
Yeah. And I mean, I think hopefully they put a roster around him this year. We can get some of those answers. Will K says, has Aaron Soliday been signed yet? Yeah, he went back to Houston, I believe. Last one here then. Mel, what games or players are you planning to watch today? Omari, I'll let you go first because this is going to be an easy answer for you. So.
Yeah, I mean, I fly out today, so I'm, you know, so by the time I get home, like, I'm probably going to miss all those games, to be honest. So I'm not going to watch a whole lot today, but I'll be on, you know, watching the TV tomorrow for the Pistons and everything else. So
my biggest thing today is, like, I feel like I've been running around the last 2 days, like scrambled all over the place, had to lock in on the Pistons game yesterday. Today I'm hoping to just go to the gym and just chill, be able to say what's up to people if people are there. If I had to pick anybody out, I didn't get to see the Timberwolves play the other day, so I want to check that out with Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., Rockets, Wizards, another one. We get another chance to see Reed Shepherd, and then obviously Sar and Bub there. And then Hawks Spurs will be a good one. Reza Shea, Steph Castle. Yeah. So those would kind of be the ones I would look forward to. You know, Bulls, Warriors play late tonight. That may be one where I actually, you know, go eat and then a little earlier this time and, you know, catch that one on TV or something. So
yeah. Before we wrap up, we gotta get back to the line debate last night.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
So it was, you know, so Rod, you know, being the
Rod's on my side. Rod, I want to be Rod Beard is on my side. Thank you, Rod.
So here's the thing. Like, there's a correlation between, you know, like liking lines and being a father.
No.
They both have multiple kids.
This is ageism right now.
It's not ageism.
It is.
It's parentism. If anything,
you just said me and Rod are old, and that's why we like lawns.
You guys are fathers. That's why you like lawns. It's a father thing.
That's not what you were saying.
It's a father thing. There's something about fatherhood and just like a nice green, freshly mowed lawn that just
Wes really says he has no kids. And he likes lawns.
Yeah,
Wait, is Wes actually on my side on this one? This is different.
Wes is married, so that's like fatherhood adjacent, you know.
Yeah. No. Listen, I'm right. And also, somebody ruined my night last night. Like, I'm having fun, taking pictures, tweeting, and someone goes, think about how messed up your lawn is getting right now while you've been away for all these days. Yeah, and I instantly got stressed out. Like, instantly.
Which proves my point. It is, lawns exist as a chore, nothing more, nothing less. They are a chore and a reason to be stressed.
Because once I get home and I cut it and it looks beautiful, it'll be a huge stress relief and a sense of satisfaction that very other things can provide.
But is it worth the stress that you had going into it?
My whole life is stress. Everything stresses me, Omari. So like,
and that's the fatherhood element. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's fatherhood.
That's facts.
The grass, like, it gives you an outlet, right? Like, you can't always control your kids, you know, like, but you can control the lawn. You can control the lawn. It's a, you know, like you. Like,
it
you
gives
can do
me
that.
an outlet from my kids whenever they're going crazy. I can put my headphones in and go relaxingly cut the lawn.
Yeah. So I guess
you must not have had a self-propelled mower. This is the issue. Like, whatever you were for, where's Papa Omari? Where's your dad at? Well, I need your mom or your dad in.
We actually did have a propelled lawnmower. Like, we didn't start off with one, but we did get one probably when I was in like fifth grade.
I'd like to hear you two talk about big gardens first. My wife has a garden. She got watermelon and lettuce and all sorts of stuff. That's my wife, though.
I have plants. I have 2 spider plants, a coleus and a aloe vera that my mom got me for my birthday. So I'm pro plant. I'm just not pro grass.
Where do you keep your plants?
Like, in the window. Like, they're right in the window. Like, they're like to the left.
I hate inside plants. They're ridiculous.
Yeah. Like, I love indoor plants. It's just,
you probably have spiders then.
Spiders are cool. They take care of the pests.
Oh my God. Let's go. You have a flight to catch. I want to go eat lunch.
I do have a flight to catch. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on our annual live episode from Vegas. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and shout out to Wes, who is enjoying Europe right now. And we'll talk to you all next week.